agent on the Whatever It Takes network, the first show for real estate agents by real estate agents. I'm Tim Brooks with the Brooks Group at Real Tim Brooks on Twitter.
And I'm Dan Schabowski at Dan Schabowski on Twitter.
Now in this episode, we are going to cover proven business models, and this is so important. We're actually going to cover why business models matter, the types of business models we should be thinking about, and something very important that Gary Keller came up with in Millionaire Real Estate Agent called E to P, going from entrepreneurial to purposeful.
Right. And really, as we go through these things, it's important as a realtor, too often you don't think about it as a business. You think as a business as somebody who creates a product or a service and creates that from scratch and then builds a business off of that. This is very much the same.
Yeah, absolutely. So what is a proven business model and why does it matter? Is there a proven business model worldwide that you can think of?
Sure. I'd say McDonald's is a big one, obviously. There's a reason why they can deliver the same high level of success and service throughout each one of their restaurants.
Absolutely. And why does McDonald's work? Why does it work the way it is? What can you expect in a McDonald's here versus Shanghai? What's going to be different about it?
It shouldn't be anything because they operate in systems. They have a system that is successful. Each one follows that system, and that's their formula for success.
Let me ask you, is a McDonald's owner allowed to, say, deviate from the system and instead of the Big Mac have like a big fish?
No. And they're not. And the reason being is, why would you want to recreate the wheel when the wheel has been created for you?
Yeah, but what if they want to use different cups?
Unacceptable.
What about different types of soda?
It doesn't fit the system.
So they're not allowed to at all?
No.
All right. So, and the reason is because it works.
It does.
It's a proven business model. It's not just a model, it's a proven business model.
They've tested it, they've fretted out the kinks, and they have a successful model that's been tested, and it's been true, just like you said, all around the world.
Yeah, absolutely. And so you can expect with a proven business model, consistency. You're going to have standards that are the same in Shanghai as they are in California
exactly.
or in Maryland here. You're going to have expectations as a customer. You can walk into any McDonald's anywhere in the world and have the same expectation and get the same experience.
Right.
So that's an example of a perfect business model there. Now, some of their business decisions, they may struggle here or there, but the model itself works.
Right.
And that's a great example of a business model. Now, what gives a successful franchise value?
Well, it has to have those systems and that marketability, because that's what you're buying when you buy a franchise, is you're buying the system that has been created. Because that's the hardest part of any business, is creating a successful system.
A system that's proven and works.
Exactly.
Now, why is a successful franchise worth more than, say, a brand new franchise?
Because that one probably hasn't been tested the same way, and you don't know that the system, you don't have the proof to show that the system works throughout everywhere you go.
Yeah, and therefore the risk is through the roof.
Exactly.
So excellent. And a great business model should also be scalable.
Right.
You know, you want to be able to scale up that model, and the model should you should never pick a model that doesn't allow you to extract yourself from the system itself.
Because then you're buying a job, basically. You're coming into a model that is a job.
Yeah, absolutely. And so if you've got a scalable model, if you've got a model that's got certain people in certain positions with certain responsibilities, and you can eventually unplug yourself but have trained people in that model because it's a model, then that's an excellent system.
And as long as you put the right talent in the right spots, a proven business model will produce the results that you expect it to.
Yeah, absolutely. And good models are really like they're like a roadmap. It's like construction blueprints, really.
Yep.
And what do you do with construction blueprints?
You follow them. You open them and you follow them.
Now, let's say as a general contractor, which you are a general contractor as well, let's say you get a set of blueprints and you decide, nah, I want to put something else in there instead. You know, you're feeling a little creative. You watched a little HGTV.
I watched a little too much HGTV today.
And you thought, nah, this guy maybe would look really good with, say, this double arched door in the middle of, say, the basement.
Right.
Would that not be a good thing?
Well, absolutely not, because I didn't deliver the level of service and I did not meet my client's expectations.
Right, exactly. And those blueprints they've already gone through the county, you've already gotten permits, and everyone knows that they're sound.
Exactly.
Okay. So you don't need to wander through the desert and spend time and resources inventing the wheel that, say, was already invented, several thousand years ago.
Exactly.
And you just have to look for who has it.
Right. You find the model that you're looking for the success that you want, and you follow it.
Yeah, find out who's doing what you want to do at a high level, then go find them, figure out what they're doing, and copy it.
Yeah, you may have to jump on a plane and fly across the country to sit down with an agent who's doing what you want to do.
Yeah, oftentimes you will have to do that. And let's say we're with Keller Williams, so we have Mega Camp, which is really a big masterminding session. We have regional masterminds where guys that are at the absolute top of our industry are there sharing what their systems and models are, what their innovations are that are actually working. We also have a Family Reunion, which is a massive event, 15,000 KW agents. This year I think it's going to be in Louisiana.
And the funny thing to me is coming back from some of those and hearing some agents that aren't doing the business like these people are, and they'll take their pool, they'll try to pick this or that, but they don't give it the value that it deserves. You're in front of someone who has done it, they have proven they can do it. I want to know how they did it.
Well,
I don't want to go create it myself.
Yeah, absolutely. And there are a lot of agents that may resist certain things in the model that maybe they don't like or that they're uncomfortable with.
And that's a lot of times, it may not even be that they don't like it, they're uncomfortable about it, or they're not willing to go gain the knowledge to become comfortable with it. Because that's what it really is do you feel comfortable in your own knowledge to perform the task? And if not, you're going to find another way to do it, or usually not the right way to do it, just another way.
Yeah, it's going to be some sort of entrepreneurial, creative type of way, but it's going to be unproven, and as we're going to talk about later, your natural ceiling of achievement may get in your way of any breakthroughs or really taking your business to the top level.
And when you say the word entrepreneurial, we always associate that with good things, and it is a good thing. However, we will run into our own ceiling with that, and that's what we're going to talk about as we follow up in these other sections to show really how to be successful on a large business scale.
Yeah, so stay with us.
Welcome back to Agent on the Whatever It Takes Network. I'm Dan Schabowski at Dan Schabowski on Twitter.
And I'm Tim Brooks at Real Tim Brooks on Twitter.
And what we're going to look at this is we're going to cover some of the types of business models in this segment.
Yeah, some of the models that you're going to need in your real estate business. And there are a few different models out there, and we're just going to cover some general models that you need to look at, and then we can get maybe a little bit more specific about what goes into those models down the road. So the first model we want to look at is going to be your sales model. And sales to me, and should be to everyone, is king. Above all things, revenue generation is the number one thing.
That's your goal, right?
Yeah. And so when thinking about your sales model, what's your sales model going to look like?
And it's going to have to do with where are we generating those leads from, because as we've discussed in previous episodes, we can figure out how many calls do we need to make, how are we going to generate those leads to make the revenue, to have it become generated.
Yeah, and then what's your lead flow going to look like? So let's say you're generating leads, you're bringing them in. What's the flow of those leads? Say it comes in, and then what happens from there to your lead?
Right.
How does it get processed? How does it get routed to the right person?
How do you extract the money from that lead?
Yeah. And how are you going to coordinate your leads and do follow-up so nothing falls through the cracks? That's a huge problem, especially for agents that are just solo on their own and not necessarily on a team with, say, an executive assistant or somebody that has that as their responsibility and that actually has a behavioral profile that is conducive to making sure that those details are handled.
And that follow-up is huge, and that's a great point to touch on, because just like you said, an individual agent has 10 different jobs to do in a day and a bunch of different hats to wear, and it's so easy for those leads that are potential revenue generating leads just to fall through the cracks.
Yeah, and your sales model, what do your scripts and dialogue look like? Are you using scripts and dialogue? Do you have a system for how to use your scripts and dialogue and maybe make adjustments to those and changes, et cetera, with the market?
And as you talk about all these, the word system is so important, because then you have a testable model. If you're just trying to do something different every time, we don't know how to test something and how to find out the friction point or find out the success point. We don't know what causes that.
Yeah, and do you have sales training in place? Do you have a sales training system? Like we like to use Cardone University.
Absolutely.
But do you have some kind of system for training your people, getting yourself trained up?
Yeah.
And that needs to be in your model, absolutely. You have to lead with revenue, like I said, and that means sales.
Right.
That's just a fancy way of saying sales. Any business organization that does not have a robust sales model is doomed.
Right, and don't get caught up in the thought if you feel, oh, you have to be a natural-born salesman. It can be learned just like anything else, and that's why, like you said, Cardone University was so vital for us.
Because remember, we're not born natural anything other than what?
Babies.
That's right. So our second model that we want to think about is our business model. do you know your numbers? In your business model, you have to know the numbers in your business.
And what kind of numbers are those that we're looking for?
Well, we need to know what's our cost per sale.
Right.
How much are we spending on a certain amount of leads? How much are we? What are our numbers overall in our budget? Which is the next question. Do you even have a budget?
Right. Have you planned it out? Have you scheduled it? Because there are things that are going to cost money, even down to, placing signs, ordering signs, generating those leads. Those leads aren't free a lot of times.
Yeah, and the biggest thing, cost per sale.
Right.
I guarantee you there are so many agents that would not know what their cost per sale is, how much.
And how do you build a business if you don't know how many sales you need to be profitable?
Well, and that's exactly it. You need to know those numbers. Otherwise, you may think that you're doing well and be unprofitable.
Right. When those commission checks come in, it may feel good, but you may have spent twice that to generate that one lead.
Yeah, what's your profit margin look like too? Let's say you have a team, it's going, but your profit margin is 10%, 20%.
Right.
Where, the Keller Williams model has us at 40% is your optimal profit margin with a large team.
And that's paying for everybody's salary, the leads, the marketing, everything. Yep.
Yeah. So then what do your staffing and salary expenses look like in relation to your sales?
Right.
What marketing are you using, and is it working? So the third model that we want to look at is our staffing model. What responsibilities are there and what positions are needed?
Right. It's important to know the vital ones so you can put the right people in there because they're going to drive your success.
Yeah. And is there accountability for each position?
Do they understand what their job is, and how are we going to make them accountable mostly too?
Yeah, hold them accountable, set them up for success, and then leadership's going to come in with that also. Is there a growth plan? What is your growth plan? So these are all things that you'll want to include in your model. Do you have a system for finding and hiring talent? Keller Williams has an excellent system called Recruit, Select, Train, Lead, and Motivate, which is what we follow at the Brooks Group. It's an awesome system. And then the fourth model is the financial model. Now, how much income do you need to generate? How much income do you have to generate to hit your goals?
Right.
Well, we have a goal that we set up there. So, okay, how much income do we need to generate that net goal?
And that goal setting is so important in this whole thing, where if you just go into this as an agent trying to sell homes and you don't consider any of these things, you'll never have a plan.
Yeah. Now, we each have our own individual financial goals that we go over, right?
Yep.
And we're supposed to, according to our model, hold each other accountable to those.
Right.
Our business goals, our financial goals, our personal goals, all of those things.
Because we're trying to live the life that we want to live. And that's what all this is for, ultimately.
Yeah, living a life by design.
By design, absolutely.
Not by default. So how many sales do you need to make to hit your financial goals with your financial model? How many appointments do you need to hit the sales? And then finally, how many calls does it take to get the appointments? And you can, once you come up with your actual goal, you can back yourself all the way down into how many phone calls a day do I need to make. And it all boils down to that.
And that's the most beautiful thing about all this. Is, as complicated as this may seem and uncomfortable as some people, if it's done correctly, you can really boil it down to simply one number. And that number being, how many calls need to be made today for me to reach my goal?
Yeah, absolutely. And so these models really allow us to just plug our data into the model. Where we are right now as a team, we plug that in to all of these systems and models.
Right.
And then we know exactly where we're at, exactly where we're going, exactly what we need to do, what adjustments we need to make to get back on track. And these models were already laid out for us.
Right. And it's scary if you don't have these models laid out for you, because then you're kind of just running in the wind to be left to your own devices.
Well, and remember, we don't really want to create our own models and systems. If they already exist out there, somebody, I guarantee, if you want to do something out there, there's already someone doing it at a very high level. You just need to find out who it is and what they're doing.
Right.
Make a phone call, get on a plane, and find out. At Keller Williams, they basically lay out, these models were laid out long before I ever got there. Now, they're not the exact models I just mentioned, but in Millionaire Real Estate Agent, Gary Keller lays out all of the 4KW finance, all the models that we use.
And ultimately, I think one of the most important things about what we've just talked about is the fact that this will help you overcome the roller coaster, the wave of real estate. And the reason why, some agents are able to be able to have massive success one year, not the next, this allows you to have that consistency.
And for more information about the Keller Williams models and systems available, tweet me at RealTimBrooks or tweet Dan at Dan Chabowski. Stay with us. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Agent, the first show for real estate agents by real estate agents on the Whatever It Takes network. I'm Tim Brooks at Real Tim Brooks.
And I'm Dan Schabowski at Dan Schabowski on Twitter.
All right, now to continue our discussion we were having about proven business systems and models, there's a very important concept that I'd like to talk to you about that Gary Keller originally came up with in the book Millionaire Real Estate Agent. And this is the concept of going from E to P. And what that means is going from entrepreneurial behavior to purposeful behavior, or purposeful behavior is also unnatural behavior to achieve higher results than we were ever thought we were capable of.
Right, and I think too often we associate entrepreneurial with the highest level of achievement. And that's part of what the issue is here, is that creates that ceiling for us and stops us from becoming massively successful when we have
we
potential.
associate it with creativity,
right,
starting businesses and things like that. But in this case here, entrepreneurial really means our natural behavior,
right,
our natural, say what I would do without, say, being purposeful about something or following a model, but just what I do based on instinct, really, what feels right.
And it's going to lead you to your natural limitations too.
Well, we know people that are extremely high achievers, and the highest achievers even will eventually hit some sort of achievement ceiling. Everybody does.
And it's different for everybody, but there is a point at somewhere for everyone.
Yeah, and so once you hit that level of natural, that achievement ceiling, you're going to bounce around that ceiling. You're going to get a little bit frustrated, maybe perform a little bit less.
And when we say ceiling, picture your growth and then hitting that ceiling, that stopping point that's going to create friction, and we run into that friction, that's led us to the top of our natural ability. That's where we're going to want to start to divert from our goal and our path because we've hit friction for ourselves.
Yeah, and then what happens with those people eventually?
They'll teeter off and find a new thing to throw themselves into until they reach that ceiling once again. And then it'll be on to the next one, on to the next one.
Now, I know I personally used to do that. I was notoriously guilty for doing that. I'd get very good at something, and then I'd kind of get bored with it because I wasn't progressing any further.
Right.
And I'd look for something else. And
absolutely, and again, that's probably why we got along so well, because I found the very same thing in my life, but until I became purposeful. I was able to become successful in an entrepreneurial way, and whether it was higher or lower than other people, I would hit that ceiling myself where I would run into an inability to grow anymore, to grow past my own limitations.
Yeah, once you hit your natural ceiling, that's it. There's no way to break through it on your own doing what you've always done. And what's the saying? Keep doing what you've always done, you're going to get the results you've always gotten.
Exactly.
And that's kind of being entrepreneurial in this sense. That's exactly what you're going to end up getting, doing your natural, what you naturally would be doing.
Right.
And again, this is a concept that Gary Keller of Keller Williams Realty International came up with in the best-selling book Millionaire Real Estate Agent, and then he elaborated on it in The One Thing. And excellent books, excellent concept.
Right.
Those rank right up there with my favorite book, The 10X Rule by Grant Cardone. Well, Sell or Be Sold is also one of my favorites too, and Closer's Survival Guide. And if you're not first, you're last. Those are my top four.
So they're all your favorite. Okay.
It's like the Beatles.
Right.
So, and then Gary Keller, is a close second.
Right.
So the entrepreneurial approach, though, is doing what comes naturally. When we do this, we have a natural achievement ceiling, like we talked about, based on natural abilities. But does there have to be a ceiling there? There doesn't.
There does not have to be a ceiling, and that can come from our growth and our understanding. As long as we understand this, we can overcome this aspect.
Yeah, and going into the ceiling, bumping up against it, models and systems are what cause a breakthrough of the ceiling.
Right.
So you picture it like an invisible ceiling, a glass ceiling, Charlie and the Chocolate Factory ceiling.
Right.
And we need the models and systems are the elevator that's going to break through.
Absolutely, because without those models and systems, our natural limitations are going to stop us and send us in a different direction other than our most successful direction, which we can continue on.
So, and oftentimes the natural approach is going to result in disappointment.
Right.
Have you ever been disappointed? You got so good at something, then you're disappointed, frustrated all the time.
Right.
Then ultimately that ends up in resignation.
Sure.
And
I think, too, this is such a vital point because this is where most agents will stop or not gain the knowledge that they need to become ultra successful with those models and those systems. And it's very difficult to overcome your natural limitations.
It's almost impossible. You can skill up to a certain degree, but then you're still, that's purposeful behavior,
right,
rather than entrepreneurial.
Exactly.
And then again, we talked about seeking greener pastures. And then the cycle continues. They move on to a greener pasture, get pretty good at something, hit that ceiling, get frustrated, move on to greener pastures, and the cycle continues. Now, the purposeful approach is what comes unnaturally. It's
right.
unnatural. It's uncomfortable to be purposeful.
Right. And it's really characterized by things like focus on the growth from the models and the systems that are going to really lead to those breakthroughs and breaking through that ceiling.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's say being focused on something and staying focused on it, even when we're, let's say we've hit our natural abilities, we figured out, okay, here's a model that works, here's a system that works, we're focused on it, and then you have a breakthrough of that ceiling. And then what happens, you've broken through that ceiling, then we're going to find better models, better systems,
right.
More focus on those better models and systems until we have another breakthrough.
Sure.
And then from there, the cycle will continue as far as purposeful behavior goes, and we're going to continue finding better models and better systems, revising the ones that we have, refining them.
And the cycling goes, as it goes on an upward path as opposed to deflecting in a direction that we don't want to be going in.
Yeah, absolutely. And I heard the other day Seth Campbell, who's a regional director at Keller Williams in the Maryland, D.C. region. I heard him say something, and he spoke about going from E to P, and I want to share that with you. He said, by definition, it's unnatural. So we have this tendency where we stay in natural mode. So purposeful, unnatural, entrepreneurial, natural mode. So we have a tendency to stay in natural mode. I actually believe that the higher your natural ceiling is probably the worse off you are, because you probably have succeeded at such a high level that you've never had to get purposeful, and then you'll hit a ceiling somewhere and people will start passing you up, and that's going to frustrate you, and it becomes more difficult. And those of us that have a lower ceiling, we're forced to learn how to do it in a more purposeful way earlier, and then we learn, okay, this is where breakthroughs are made.
Right.
And is to get personal, or purposeful. So very important concept there, and he's one of the master trainers when it comes to that whole idea.
Right, and really I think the thing to take out of this section here is understanding really what the difference is between entrepreneurial and purposeful, because these may be concepts that you haven't looked at before, you haven't thought about, you haven't analyzed yourself that deep, because it's very hard to reflect on your own actions. Yeah. Because we feel that the actions that we naturally do are the correct ones, that's why we're doing them.
Exactly. So that's why we have to find, that's why proven business models, it's extremely important to find one. Figuring out what the systems are that are going to go into those models, and then finally moving from E to P.
And also what's going to help you push through this is accountability. We hold each other accountable for our goals.
And usually those good models and systems have built-in accountability.
Absolutely.
Built-in accountability. Accountability is so important. Every time we've ever had an achievement or a breakthrough, it's always because we were forced to. There was some accountability.
Right. Exactly. We were held to our standards by each other and by our models and systems that we use.
Yeah. And to further expand on this, join us in our next episode where we're actually going to cover the different parts of a real estate team that are actually going to make a team work for you and be expandable and scalable. I'm Tim Brooks at Real Tim Brooks.
And I'm Dan Schabowski at Dan Schabowski on Twitter.
Agent to Agent is also available for download on iTunes and Stitcher.